Thanks everyone for joining tonight's History at Home program, which we're excited to have. We do History at Home programs if you're new to us, usually once a month. It's typically on a Thursday evening. All of our programs are recorded and they go up on our YouTube channel. If you missed any links, I'll post links again later. So always feel free. You can get that right on our website at the Montclair History Center to see all the programs we've done before if you want to learn more. And this is actually our last History at Home program until September. We take a little summer break, but we do have other summer programming coming up in July. We're doing a walk, talk, tasting tour, which involves going to restaurants, and a nice walking tour right in Montclair's upper center area on Bloomfield Avenue. And we're also doing a early evening, we're calling it like a twilight Rosedale Cemetery tour in July as well, in the middle section, to hopefully beat the heat. So feel free to visit us and join in our programs that evening. But why we're here tonight, we're truly thrilled to have Nesta Stevens here with us this evening. So Nesta is actually a former parishioner at Trinity Episcopal Church. And Trinity was actually active for 91 years and home to so many British subjects who immigrated essentially from the Caribbean. So tonight, Nesta is going to walk us through this really rich history to Montclair's community. Feel free to use the chat at any point tonight. And if you want to ask questions or just interact, and then what we'll do at the end of the presentation, we can read any of the questions from the chat, or you're welcome to unmute and we can discuss. You can ask things live at that point. But I'm going to just turn it over to Nesta, who's going to dive into the presentation for us tonight.
Thank you, Angelica, and I'm glad to have the opportunity. For those of you who don't know why I'm making this presentation, I just wanted to give you a little background as to my involvement with Trinity and how I ended up at Montclair History Center. I'm a cradle Episcopalian. My parents were married by the founder of Trinity Episcopal Church, Reverend George Marshall Plaskett. My granddaughter, Nia Tyson's paternal great-grandparents were also married by Reverend Plaskett, and Nia was the last person baptized in Trinity December 24th, 2006, when she was 5 months old. I've been very active in Trinity, very active in the diocese. I was appointed by Bishop Spong. I served on many positions, the Commission on Ministry, Ward Herbert Fund, a mission to dismantle racism. And my husband was also the parliamentarian to convention. I wanted to know why my parents ended up in Montclair and especially at Trinity. And as Angelica stated, a lot of Caribbeans actually not only attended St. Luke's because they were Anglicans, but they also attended St. James and St. John's parishes in Montclair. And I wanted to find out what was going on, why they were there. And I've taken this information from one of the original parishioners, Emily Campbell. She was married by Father Plaskett, and I have in my possession 4 scrapbooks going from 1927 that she started at, which goes back to 1916. She produced 4 of these scrapbooks, which are about 70 pages each. She has every page on both sides. I have gone through most of this material, so I'm only giving you a fraction of what I have learned from her. Some of the documents are really just starting to wear and tear and disintegrate. And my working with Erin Burns, who is our museum coordinator, I have seen how she's handled these kinds of documents with gloves and with care, and I'm hoping to put this information in the archives. So I'm going to start by giving you some background on this is what Trinity looked like on North Willow Street after maybe about 50 years. So this is my information about Mrs. Campbell. And I just spoke to you about that, so I'm going to continue on. St. Luke's had a minister named Reverend Luke White. He wanted to be called Mr. White, but he started his service at St. Luke's in 1916. This is Father George Marshall Plaskett. And I want to give you some information on how Trinity evolved with George Marshall Plaskett, because Mr. Luke, as he wanted to be called, got Reverend Plaskett to start these churches because he felt there was a need when he went to St. Luke's for Jamaicans to have a place to worship. And as you can see, what really intrigued me about this search of mine is that Reverend Plaskett came to the United States as an orphan at 12 years old. He found a job as a bellboy at night. There were no child labor laws at that time. He found a way to work at night, and he went to primary school and finished school. He attended St. Augustine School. He migrated to North Carolina for a while. He ended up at Columbia University and then got his graduated from General Seminary at age 24 in 1906. Luke White immediately saw a need for community in Jamaican community, and he felt that the British subjects needed their own church. Now, the reason that I bring this to your attention is that I know that my family, and they were probably about 20 or more that attended St. Luke's in the early 1920s. They were not able to sit where they wanted to sit. They couldn't take communion when they wanted to sit. They sat in a section of the church near the pulpit. They had to wait until all of the other parishioners took communion so that they could take communion when when everyone was finished. And the men, as Anglicans, only went to St. Luke's to be confirmed. And this is also my father. The women were confirmed there, but the men ended up going to the African-American, Black Baptist and Methodist churches in town because they did not appreciate being segregated in a church. So Mr. White, Reverend White, as he's arranged to have a hall rented, and he obtained Reverend Plaskett as a vicar. He wasn't a minister at the time, to start the Trinity Episcopal Church. In 1918, Reverend White was able to get St. Luke's and St. John's and St. James to help purchase an armory that was a former dance hall for the people to worship. Now, one of the issues that was here, one of the reasons many of the men did not want to attend was because this dance hall was what they called back in the day a juke joint. And they felt that this was not a sacred place to worship. But Father Plaskett was able to convince them that, you know, with renovations, that this would be a good place to start to be their own church. Father Plaskett, by the way, started these churches. He started Trinity in 1916, St. Aidan's Church in Patterson in 1918, and later that year, St. Cyprian's Church in Hackensack. And in 1922, he started the Chapel of Ascension, which was a mission of Epiphany. He was vicar at Epiphany in East Orange at that time. In 1917, Father Plaskett wrote a letter to St. Luke's because St. Luke's started to give them financial support, and they just felt that it was something they should do. And this was his report. In 6 months, this is what he achieved in building this ministry. The initial service had 40 attendees. In 6 months, it grew to 130. The room that they were in was in the Crane building, and services immediately became very crowded. Father Plaskett, in his letters, indicated that he went to the people to say, look, we need to have our own building. We need to have our own church. I need you to sacrifice and give $1 a month if you can. And that offerings increased because the people there wanted to be self-sufficient. They were very proud individuals. They wanted to make sure that any money that was given to them or loaned to them would be taken over by the congregation, and all expenses that were paid out by St. Luke's, St. James, and St. John's would be paid in full by the parishioners of Trinity. This is a letter. It's hard to see, but this is one of the letters that Father Plaskett wrote, and he was given a status report. Every couple of months, he gave a status report to St. James, St. Luke's, and St. John's. He will tell you in here what his sending for your criticism and a review. He says, I do regret it was not possible for me to get the statement out on the day, but he made, what's important about this letter is that the mission, and this was dated February 1917, the mission is sending to St. Luke's 2 checks, $30 each, as payment of the rent for the 2 months ending February. I assure you, rejoice with them in this evidence of self-help. That is what he encouraged this congregation to do. And these people were very happy to be in their own space and to be able and to enable their growth by themselves without help of another. These are some of the things that St. Luke's did as a community of service. And you'll notice that I have here the Montclair YWCA. These are some of the things that they did. Oddly enough, Montclair YWCA was also segregated. It was around the corner from Trinity, and we had many functions there. I went there after school with Mrs. Hortense Tate, but Montclair YWCA was home to Trinity for most of our functions. One of the things that Trinity did at that time in the 1920s was to have concerts in the church at other venues, including a Y. And by the way, if you want to see what Montclair YWCA did in those days, you should come and visit us. It's where I work. It's on 108 Orange Road. You will see a vast history of what the Montclair YWCA has done for the community. And you can see what we're doing now to enhance the knowledge of what we're about. We have musical performances at Trinity by many choirs, the Morehouse Glee Club, the Fifth Jubilee choirs, the North Jersey Philharmonic Glee Club, which is one of the oldest all-male African-American glee clubs in the United States. We also, in addition to fundraising, many of the retired church educators had after-school tutoring for the educators. One of the things that's here is you'll see that this is a program for a fashion show, and I wanted to bring you to your attention why I showed this. As it states here, many of the African-American performers that were booked in New York City were unable to stay in the New York hotels. So when they were booked, many of them frequented Montclair. People like Dr. Darden and many other homeowners, Black homeowners, would open their homes so that these people could have a place to stay. Cicely Tyson referenced this in her book where she talked about Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway and other notables that stayed in Montclair. And Duke Ellington's granddaughter, Mercedes Ellington, was a young model in one of our fashion shows in 1945. These are some of the people, you will find that I'm going to make a note of what these people have done. Father Plaskett, as we called him, was very keen on civic as well as political, as well as his religious activities. And he helped promote and push people that made first in their endeavors. And I wanted to remind those people who are from Trinity as to who these might be. This is just a snippet of the first, because Father Plaskett also in Orange, I found that he helped get the first Black police officers hired in Orange back in the 1920s and 30s. as well as correction officers. So these are people who attended. Dr. David Dixon, first African-American president of Montclair State. Dr. Emily Waters, who was a professor of music. She was also our organist. Lenny Coleman, Sr., first African-American to the New York, New Jersey Port Authority. Richard Stone in the prosecutor's office of Essex County. Alberta Stone, who attended St. Luke's. She was a librarian at Montclair Public Library. Dr. Arthur Thornhill. This was something really big that Father Plaskett had done. Dr. Thornhill treated most of the African-American Caribbean residents in Montclair, but he was not given the ability to treat his patients in the hospital. He wasn't given rights to do that. Father Plaskett helped push so that Dr. Thornhill could get that done. Many of us saw him. He attended our church. He was an avid member. His daughter, Frances Thornhill, attended what was then called College High, which was an advanced program for Montclair High School students. And his daughter, through urging from Father Plaskett and others, was one of the first African-American students to attend College High at Montclair, what was then Montclair State College. Arthur McLeod was a secretary at the Black YMCA in Montclair. We had 2 segregated Ys in Montclair. Florette Sanders was the first African-American teacher at Hillside Middle School in Montclair. Patrick Scantlebury, he and my dad used to talk. He was a member of the Negro Baseball League, the New York Cubans baseball team. My dad used to play with the Surrey Cricket Club in Glenfield Park. So they would talk about the differences between baseball and cricket, but they were good friends, and his family still lives in Montclair. His son is currently one of the councilmen for the town manager from Montclair. William Fry was first African-American postmaster of Montclair. He was a retired officer in the New Jersey National Guard. And these are all Donna Philpott, firemen, David Love, Kenny Patterson, correction officers, Evelyn Mobley Booker, custom agent, Marlene Dunn, and Ann Scott. Marlene was my sister. They were the first African-American students to attend Rhode Island School of Art and Design. And I remember the day that we took them up there, and I was just awestruck to see these college students and the hills in Rhode Island and this college campus. And we were very proud of them to be there. This is Patrick Scantlebury. This is a picture of, he also played Negro Leagues and based in Mexico. And this is Frances Thornhill. She was also a first female lay worship in Trinity. Early on, our vestry, which was the governing board of Trinity, were all male. So it was a pleasure to see females starting to get in the vestry as clerks and as worship assistants on the altar. Pearl Barry, we called her Pearl, but she was Alexander Barry, and I apologize for not being able to take this out. She was involved in the Mayor's Committee for United Nations. And I didn't know that what she did. I just know that she always dressed to the nines, and she spoke very well. She taught Sunday school for us, and she always talked about UNICEF, and she made sure that on Halloween, instead of going trick-or-treating, she had the children in Trinity, like me, go out, and we had these little boxes to collect for UNICEF for children overseas. This is a picture of, and it's hard to see, I think I have a better one. Don Miller, his family was very prominent in Trinity. He dedicated a mural for Dr. Martin Luther King. And it's in Washington, D.C. He has, he's a very gifted artist, and many of his paintings and murals are all over the country and in other parts of the world. His family, the Millers, were very involved in helping bring Trinity to light. This is where he dedicated a picture to Dr. Dixon, whose wife had passed, and this was a dedication that was listed in the Montclair Times. This is a brief history of, and you can read this online. If Emily Campbell wrote her own history of Trinity Episcopal Church, which I found in her scrapbook toward the end. And as you see, it's curved because the book is curved, but she also talked about how Trinity survived, what we had to do back in the day. And she talked about the new ministers that were there, Father Parker, who succeeded Father Plaskett. And it's very interesting reading. This was one of the shining visitors. We had Bishop Desmond Tutu from South Africa as a speaker. I have the program here, and you can see that this was just an exciting time. He visited us, he spoke with us, we had a reception for Bishop Tutu and his wife at the Y around the corner. And it was just an awesome time to hear him speak and to know that he came to our church and to watch what he had done for us. And it says here, a reception to honor Bishop will be held in the lounge of Montclair YWCA. This is the service that she had, and he was from Lesotho, South Africa. And he was also the executive secretary of the African Council of Churches at that time. This is a picture that's a very bad picture, but this is the ministers in Montclair. I wanted to show, this was Father Atkins, who was one of the subsequent ministers, but Trinity was always involved in the community with the ministers and with other religions as well. This is one of our matriarchs. This is Mrs. Steed. She was one of the women who would bake cakes and help us with fundraising. And she was a good friend of ours. She was with the Episcopal Church women. She was one of those women who just did things quietly behind, and I just wanted to make sure that she was recognized. I just wanted to show you the condition of some of these things that we need to repair and replace. I've been trying to find some of these articles in the archives. This is something that I did not put a notice on here, but at some point, I know that Reverend Brady from from the Catholic Church, St. Peter Claver, this is the trophies of the Soul Stompers. Some of the Soul Stompers attended Trinity Church, and we had their trophies there. This was, they were all over the country. They won many, many competitions. And this is one of the things that we had in Trinity for our young women and men. And I don't have a date for this. I found this in Mrs. Campbell's yearbook, scrapbook, and I think this was sometime in the 70s. I'm not sure, maybe the 80s. This is Arthur McLeod, who was a secretary at the Black YMCA. And this is one of my last slides. A George Plaskett symposium was created. And one of the reasons that this was created in 2019 is because it was a concern about the decline in membership and due to rising operation costs. And this was one of the things that was done in Father Plaskett's honor. And he was always teaching us of how to be economically prepared. and he was really ahead of his time. He was concerned about the growth of Black Episcopalians in the churches because they were leaving to go to other denominations. But this is his legacy, and this was a symposium that was held in his honor. And that is the end of my presentation. I would like to, this is only a snippet. There's so much more that I haven't been able to really present to you, but this is what I have seen, and this is where we are at this time. I want you all to understand that this was a struggling church in the 1916, 18, and 22. St. Luke's, St. James, and St. John's had taken mortgages on our properties. Every mortgage that Trinity had, from the armory to two rectories, 2 buildings, 2 houses, all of those mortgages were paid in full. There was nothing owing when the church closed in January 2007. One of the reasons I think Trinity did not survive was because of declining membership. We had our congregation kind of aged out, but there's still many of us who attend St. James, St. Luke's, Christ Church, Bloomfield, Glen Ridge. That was a church that we merged with at that time of closing. The church still stands, but it's by Petro Baptist Church. That gentleman there is the president of the African American Montclair Clergy Association. And they've done a lot to change the outside of the church. They've expanded, and it's at least the building is still there, but there are many, many memories. So if there are any questions, any comments, I'll be happy to entertain those at this time.
Thank you, Nesta. A lot of people just sharing in the chat the new information they learned about their communities. If anyone does have a question, please just feel free to unmute or use the chat box and I can read it for you.
Hi.
Hi, Betty.
Nesta, this was really great. And you know what? I'm chuckling a lot because when you mentioned Dr. Thornhill,
Yes.
he must have been going between St. Mark's and Trinity. Do you think? Because we have a window dedicated that I guess that he and his family contributed.
Yeah.
And there are pictures of him in the archives at St. Mark's. So he was going back and forth between the 2 churches.
Well, Frances was remarried at Trinity. She was served on the altar. She served on the altar. He attended there frequently. He was good friends with my dad as well. And maybe he attended both churches, but Frances was very involved in the ministry at Trinity. Well, and her children.
Yeah, I just think it's really fantastic. And, you know, to see, you know, how these 2 communities came together. That's
and
really
why. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the soul stumpers trophies. I have to tell a couple of friends of mine who were soul stumpers that you have the picture.
I have the picture. We don't know what happened to the
trophies.
The trophies.
Yeah, I know. I see why they are so proud of what they did. I had no idea they won so many competitions.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I learned a lot. Yes.
The Soul Stompers have been reformed, and I believe some of their honorary members are in the 4th of July parade on Tuesday.
That's what I understand. Yes.
Yep. I heard that too. Yeah.
So it'll be exciting.
Yeah, it will be.
2 questions in the chat. So Ronald is asking, is there any history of the pipe organ that was at Trinity, which was built by Odell Booth? Him and Dr. Emily Tyson Waters played that organ. Do you know anything about that, Nesta?
I don't have that information, but I can, that'll be part of my future I guess,
Part two.
part two. Yes,
Yeah.
I would say part two.
Mhm.
I know that St. Luke's donated some an organ back in the day. They donated the root screen. They donated some parts of the altar, and some of the women made altar linens. But that's something, Ronald, that I need to continue to look at, because I'm still not sure how. One thing, I'm not sure how Father Plaskett got to this country, if he came by ship, because he was an orphan at the time. I don't have all the information as to what was specifically donated to Trinity. More so, Father Plaskett's letters indicate that whatever you gave to us, we will pay you back in full. That was in every correspondence that I found in Mrs. Campbell's scrapbooks.
Another question, Nesta, is when did Trinity formally part from St. Luke's and become independent?
On 1916.
It's pretty
Well,
early.
they weren't fully independent. They were a mission. And I don't have the dates of when they became a parish, but I can look that up. Whoever that is, if you can send me your information, I will provide that to you.
It's Jane. We can track her down.
Okay.
Hi, Nesta. That's
Hi.
actually my question. I was trying to figure out when it became a full parish and when it was finally self-sufficient.
Much later. I want to say under Father Sidney Parker. And that would probably have been in the 60s. I'd have to look up the specific date.
Wow. Okay.
It was a long time.
Oh, someone just posted in the chat. So according to the records, Trinity became a full parish in the 1960s as well.
Okay.
That's right, Nesta. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Hey, Nesta, you mentioned Dr. Thornhill. I just was working with some of our oral histories, and Ms. Lorena Thompson. Tyson, sorry. I knew I was saying that wrong. She mentions him in hers because she was born, Dr. Thornhill was covering for her mother's usual doctor. And she mentioned that they didn't have privileges at Mountainside. But so it's interesting that you mentioned him. I was like, Thornhill, I just heard that name.
Yeah. Lorena Tyson is my granddaughter's grand aunt.
Wow.
They are all part of the Cicely Tyson, Whitney Houston family. So that's my granddaughter's family.
Nice.
And
it was
she's
very interesting to hear her story.
Yeah. It took him a while, because what happened, and especially during the flu era, that a lot of Black people in this town who died from the flu back then were not noted because their doctors weren't allowed privileges in the hospitals. It wasn't just Dr. Thornhill.
Oh.
And they were not reported in the Montclair Times either. So those stats were not really accurate at that time.
To note onto that, so Mrs. Tyson's oral history, actually, I just posted all of that up online today.
Good.
So if anyone wants to hear that Helen and Nesta are referring to,
Good.
it's online. And as I post a few more, I'll send out an email notice to everybody. I'm just not there yet. So that's coming in the next week or so. Another question, excuse me, is the Trinity Episcopal Church building still in existence, Nesta?
Yes, it's still at 19 North Willow Street, but it's now Petro Baptist Church.
Got it. Okay. Great. I think that was all the questions in the chat. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to share, ask? You can also unmute if you'd like.
Hi, Nesta. This is Gloria Brown.
Hi, Gloria. How are you?
Good. And Wendy's on as well.
Hi, Wendy.
Genealogy on the family, and I know that our family was very instrumental in Trinity, and we would just love to have any information that you might uncover about Inez.
Well, that was going to be one of my closing remarks. I have not gone through everything that Mrs. Campbell has. There are pictures. There are pictures of your mom in some of the early pictures. But I have to be very careful of how I handle it. But I wanted to have people from Trinity come to the History Center at some point and look at them and see what's there regarding your families. And also understand that you can go on the diocesan website. And if you plug in on the archives, you can see the times that your parents were married. You can look at the dates that they may have been, you were confirmed. All of that is in the documents on the diocesan website in Newark.
Do you happen to have a website address?
I will, if you put in a chat your information and Angelica can give it to me, I will provide that to you.
Yep. And I'm just going to put my email also in the chat so I can also get you directly connected to Nesta. So let me do that too.
And just tell me what it is that you need. And I'm still searching, but there's a wealth of information in these scrapbooks.
I believe that the website is just dioceseofnewark.org. That's the Episcopal Diocese of Newark you're looking
Yes.
for. Right?
Uh-huh.
It's dioceseofnewark.org.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
I was also going to go and Google it real quick, which I'm trying to do. Any other thoughts or questions?
Okay, well, as I said, I have pictures pictures of Father Plaskett with choirs. I have many pictures that are in Mrs. Campbell's scrapbooks that I cannot identify. So my goal is to make sure that we can try to identify and make any family members who are looking for their loved ones they can get pictures of these. And I see Denise is raising her hand.
Mhm.
I can't.
Not hear you, Denise. But you're not muted, so it might be a connection.
Matthew, you want to come in here? Sorry, Matthew and I are in two different rooms.
Oh,
Okay.
there you go. We can hear you, so.
Yes, Denise. Well, how can I help you?
I was
Hi, Matthew.
curious about the cricket club.
Me
And
too.
yes, A, has anybody written the history of it? B, sorry, what was the was that probably a club in the Caribbean that people carried over, do you think?
I Googled it, and there's still like a National Surrey Cricket Club.
Oh,
But
wow.
my dad and my dad played cricket, and they all played with white shirts, white pants,
Of
and
course.
straw hats. And my sister's father-in-law told me that everyone used to go to Glenfield Park to watch the Surrey Cricket Club play. So I don't have any information on that. I've been trying to find information on that. I know that my dad told me that he played, and he, told me some of the terms about googlies or something like that. I don't remember, but they played weekly. That was one of their outlets.
That's very interesting. Well, there's a lot of cricket still in New Jersey. It's more in the kind of down in the Metro Park area. There's a lot of clubs, both and still in New York, people from the Caribbean and people from the Indian subcontinent. So
And Alan's
going.
telling me that they play in Orange Park.
Oh, right. That's great.
So that's another history at home for me.
Yep. Thank you, Nesta, so much. This was so interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys joined.
Thank you, Nesta. I think we all learned a lot, so it's truly appreciated. And it sounds like you have a request for part 2 as you continue your research as you move along, and hopefully the History Center can help you get a lot of this digitized so that it can stay preserved, as you're saying, because of the state of the scrapbooks.
And if anyone would like to, if anyone has any of those sleeves or likes to donate the sleeves that are acid-free, because none of these documents that I have been preserved. They've been in air, and I've kept them in containers, but they need to be put in slides that are going to be sealed so that we can have them digitized. So I am working on trying to get funding for that. If anyone has any ideas of where we can do that through the History Center.
Thank you, Nesta. Well, I did post as well, if you missed part, or if you want to look at our other History at Home programs, just go to our YouTube channel, upcoming events, and tonight's programs are free. Any donations are truly appreciated. And thank you again, Nesta, for your time
It's
and
my
energy
pleasure.
sharing the history with us. So have a great
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everyone.